Good morning. My name is Barbara Alexander, and if you'll stay standing for the reading of the scripture, today we're going to read Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 1 through 16. If you want to use a Pew Bible, it's page 473. Ecclesiastes 4, 1 through 16. Again, I looked and saw all the oppression that was taking place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter. Power was on the side of their oppressors, and they have no comforter. And I declared that the dead who had already died, my page just disappeared. The dead who had already died are happier than the living who are still alive. But better than both is the one who has never been born, who has not seen the evil that is done under the sun. And I saw that all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. And a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Better a poor but wise youth than an old but foolish king who no longer knows how to heed a warning. The youth may have come from prison to the kingship, or he may have been born in poverty within his kingdom. I saw that all who lived and walked under the sun followed the youth, the king's successor. There was no end to all the people who were before them, but those who came later were not pleased with the successor. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. This is the word of the Lord.
Man, nothing like some Ecclesiastes to just make you ready for the day, right? Man. Well, good morning. My name is Will Rutt. I am the youth minister here. I'm super happy to be here with you on Pumpkin Sunday. I don't know if you had a chance to, or if you took the chance, you had the chance. I don't know if you took the chance to get with your life group or a different group of people on Halloween and have a little party and passing out little cards and stuff. I did that and really was a fun time. We passed out a ton of cards and really was a fun time. So, glad you're here. Welcome. I have some ladies in my life. All right. I'm switching. All right. There we go. All right, I got some ladies in my life. This is my wife. Her name's Danielle, but we call her Sweet D. This is our oldest. Her name's Hattie, and then Kate and Rachel. And we have one more girl on the way, so we'll have 4 here in February. And I've noticed something about kids, and it's actually kind of true of adults too. It's that they want something, but then they can't get it, and it makes them upset, okay? And it's very simple things, okay? So like my youngest daughter, Rachel, if she's going to be happy, it's really pretty simple, okay? Give her like a cracker, but also give her her passy, okay? You know, that little passy makes all the difference for her. And sometimes the passy gets like put in a place because we don't want her to always have it. And so it gets put up on the couch, just out of reach. And you can see her. She comes up to the couch and she's reaching, trying to get her leg up, and she can't get it. And you know what she starts to do is, as she's working at it, she starts to whimper, and then as she keeps trying, can't get it, she just does the all-out little cry and fit and just kind of like sit down, and it's kind of pathetic, really, because we've all been here where the thing that we want is so close, but like so far. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's almost there, and we know what we want, and we think we know how to get it, but then it just seems to elude our grasp. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. Yeah, that happens. And so this morning, I want to look at from Ecclesiastes 4, what is this something, not for little baby Rachel, but what is something that all of us really do crave, and then for some reason, though we crave it, though we want it, and though we chase it, can't often seem to find. And so really the goal is that we would be able to take steps toward finding that. I know I'm being vague right now, but we'll see what it is in a second. So let me pray for us as we study. Father, we give ourselves to you now, and we're really confident that you're going to speak because you have spoken through your word. And I pray that we would not look at your word and leave unchanged. You have not given us your word just to impart information, but you've given it to us to produce transformation. And I expect, God, that you use it this morning and every time we open it to change us. We love you. In your name I pray. Amen. All right, so we're in this series going through the book of Ecclesiastes, and there's been one word that comes up over and over and over and over again, I think 35 times, and we know what it is. It is hevel, which means like meaningless. It's empty. It's kind of like, it's a vapor. It doesn't last long. It's kind of like when you blow bubbles with little kids. You chase it, and then it just, wow. And he keeps on going through all these different lives, like the pursuit of pleasure, money, finding life in work, and it's like a bubble. It just kind of lasts, and then bloop, it's hevel. And that's where we've been in Ecclesiastes. Now we're in chapter 4. We're going to look at something a little bit different. We're going to look at the first 3 words of a couple verses, and then we're going to skip down. Okay, so verse 1. I'm using the New American Standard Bible, so you might have some different words if you have NIV, but first 3 words, chapter 4, verse 1. Then I looked. What did he look at? Well, we're not going to look at that yet, okay? Verse 4. I have seen, or NIV says what? Again I saw, okay? So I looked, again I looked, and then verse 7. Then I looked. Okay, so 3 times he goes, I looked. What do you see? We'll talk about it. And then I looked again. What do you see? We'll talk about it. And then I looked again. What did he see? Well, we'll talk about it. But 3 times he goes, I looked, and then that brings him to a conclusion in verse 60, wrong chapter, in verse 9, the conclusion. Here's what he says. Here's the conclusion. We're going to talk about the conclusion, and then we're going to look at the things that he looks at. He says, verse 9, here's the conclusion. 2 are better than 1. Why? Because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if 2 lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? And if one can overpower him who is alone, 2 can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart. All right, so it's pretty simple what he's talking about here. 2 are better than 1, 2 are better than 1, 2 are better than 1. In other words, we're better together. In other words, community is really, really, really important. Community is better than isolation, okay? And I'm going to use the word community kind of loosely today. By community, I'm going to mean anytime there's more than one person, okay? Two is better than one. So if there's more than one person, that's what I'm talking about with community, two people in the same spot. So let's briefly look at these things that he says community is good for, and actually how God has given it to us as a gift. So community is one of God's gifts for people to be, what's the first one? Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. So we're going to say community is one of God's gifts for people to be productive in mission. Next verse, community is one of God's gifts for people to be lifted up in failure. For when one falls down, the other will be there to lift him up. So lifted up when we fall. It's one of God's gifts for people. The third thing, community is one of God's gifts for people to be warmed in cold seasons. Don't you love this verse? Two are warmer than one. So now you can cuddle. And it's biblical. You can tell your parents, students, when you're watching the movie, touching elbows, like, ooh, this is nice. Like, mom, dad, seriously, this is Ecclesiastes 4. It's biblical, okay? Two are warmer than one. So community is one of God's gifts for people to be warmed in cold seasons. Now, I'm taking this more figuratively, obviously, and we're going to flesh these out. But and the last, community is one of God's gifts for people to be strengthened against attack. If one can be overtaken alone, two can defend. There we go. So community is one of God's gifts. Now, before we kind of flesh these out, I want to hopefully take these out of the clouds and just put them in real life and just think through this. Community. I'm talking life group. I'm talking D group, Bob group, all sorts of groups, but not just like official groups. I'm talking your friends. I'm talking marriage. I'm talking family, community. Anytime there's at least two together, here's what you can and you should expect to get in that community. You should expect to be inspired to be productive in mission. You should expect to be lifted up in failure. You should expect to be warmed in cold seasons, and you should expect to be strengthened against attack. Like, this is what you should expect in your community. You with me? Yes, but that's not it. Because we don't want to just expect to receive those things. We want to expect to be the cause of those things in community. Where we are inspiring people to be productive in mission, where we are lifting others up in failure, where we are warming people in cold seasons, and we are strengthening our friends against attack. And we're going to flesh these things out a little bit because the goal, again, the thing that we crave is relationship, is intimacy, to be fully known, fully loved kind of thing. This is what we crave. And so often, it's like the passy on the couch. It's like, I want it, I've tried this, I've tried that, and somehow I still don't have it. And community is not just something that we want and need. It's actually something that God uses, and we'll see that in John 17. But let's kind of look at these. Community is one of God's gifts for people to be productive in mission. Okay, if I was Adam Richardson, who he is not here this morning, if I was Adam Richardson, what would be the next slide? It would be a picture. Huh? It would probably be Star Wars, yeah, the Jedi together, or it would be, come on, it would be Lord of the Rings, it'd be the Fellowship of the Ring. You know, the ring isn't going to be destroyed unless there's, what else might it be? It would be Avengers, you know, like, just trying to think like Adam. What's up, Adam, if he's listening? He is? Okay, woo! Way to go, Adam. He would probably put up a picture of a team doing something together because the team is going to be more productive in accomplishing the mission than they would be by themselves. We know this, okay? It's true in the movies. It's true in the Bible. We just name a Bible character other than the prophets, and they had somebody with them. And this is really cool, that community can be one of God's gifts for us to be more productive in mission. Let me tell you a story from a couple weeks ago that I just think is really cool. The Langs, Philippe and Rachel, they're in our life group, and they had a birthday party thing, okay? And they did they did what you're just not supposed to do. They invited the church friends and the non-church friends. You ever done that? Like they invited the friends from church and the friends from the park where they had met some other friends, okay? And if you've ever been to a birthday party where that happens, it's just kind of like you have church people and you have the other people, and then it's like, have you ever been there? Come on, you've been there, and you feel like you got to like go entertain, you got to like bridge the gap between. Okay, well, this happened, okay? We're together, but it wasn't like, that at this party, okay? So, some of these people that they had met at the park have no interest in God or religion or anything like that, actually kind of against it, okay? And it was a really, really cool night to where the way it happened in middle school at your birthday party, where you have the two groups, that wasn't how it was actually at all. And there was lots of interaction and lots of mingling between the two groups and lots of talking from work stuff to actually spiritual stuff, to the point where Rachel got a text from one of her park friends saying, hey, I'm not particularly religious, but now I'm curious. Maybe we can start reading the Bible and studying together. I want to know more. Yeah, like really. Golf clap, golf clap. No, that's cool. This is where community is one of God's gifts for people to be productive in mission. I remember just like being a part of that. I was at that party, and I went through the first probably 75% of the night, and I was just talking to the people that I knew, okay, church friends, until literally I had to like slap myself in the face, like, what am I doing? Like, I have a degree of like intentionality here, and really glad that I got to be part of a group on mission in that. So 2 are better than 1. Why? Because they have a good return for their party, okay? This is what community can do. 2 are better than 1. That's not it, though. Community is one of God's gifts for people to be lifted up in failure. I really want you to ask yourself, when was the time I was lifted up in failure because of community? You ever been lifted up in failure because of community? Really meaningful time for me happened here in like my 3rd week here. We were in staff meeting, and we were going around in staff meeting because we were kind of tasked different people to call in response to something. I don't really remember, but we were supposed to call different people. And 3rd week of staff meeting, everybody's going around, and I'm like, oh, you know what I thought? I forgot to call. I didn't call. And so I was the last person in the circle to kind of report on the call that we made. And I'm like, oh, what do I say? I don't want to be the guy who's like, yeah, it's my 3rd week here. I didn't do the one thing you asked me to do. Sorry, I didn't want to do that. So what do? You lie. Y'all seem so surprised. This is what you do. So it came to me, and I really feel so torn. I'm like, what do I say? And so this is what I said. I said, hey, I called and left a voicemail. They didn't call me back. I really don't know why you're laughing. This is kind of interesting to me. Yeah, because to me, I guess it's kind of silly, like, whatever. I was really torn. And then I was like, wow, you idiot. Just like this internal battle going on. So a couple days later, I'm in my office and I'm thinking, and I'm trying to prepare to teach, and all I can think about is, you lied, you lied, you lied, you lied. And so I'm literally, this is such a weird picture, but I'm literally laying on the ground in my office, gripping my chair because I know what I need to do. And I don't want to do it. I need to go confess the lie, and I don't want to do it. There were some like fears of me being so new. I didn't know if they would be like, glad we know who you are, like how you really are. We don't really want you. Like, I don't know why that's funny. I'm like really thinking these things. And so I go downstairs. I go to Jim Shorter's office. A lot of you know Jim Shorter. I sit down And I'm kind of like doing that little shake thing. 'Cause I'm like, I really don't want to do this, but I know I need to. And I told him, hey, in staff meeting the other day, I'm supposed to make the call, and I lied. I feel so small, and like, what's he gonna say? And one of the best moments, Jim, kind of sitting forward in his chair, looks at me, goes, "You're forgiven, and we never need to speak of it again." And I was like, oh my word. Like, I had so many fears, so many insecurities about going in that office, and the guilt was real. And then completely, I guess the guilt wasn't lifted. The guilt remained, but the shame and the fear completely lifted as he said those words to me. You're forgiven. We don't need to speak of it again. Wow. This is a real gift. I could tell you more stories than you want to know of me coming to somebody that I needed to confess a sin to and experiencing, like, tangibly the grace of God through somebody else, and was able to taste grace in a way that I would not have if I just kind of continued to bury it. So really, community is one of God's gifts. Not just to make sure that we don't fall, but to say, hey, I know you've fallen. And you know what? Here, there's grace. It's not that falling is okay. We don't want to fall, but when you fall, there's grace, there's forgiveness. You don't have to be perfect here. You're forgiven. We don't need to bring it up again. There are so many different ways that Jim could have taken that. And maybe he had some kind of inner thoughts. I don't know. Maybe some like, wow, what a punk, or something like that. But he didn't. And sometimes it's hard in community. It's hard to be on my side of things to confess the failure, but it's also sometimes hard to be on the other side when you were the person who was wronged. Something in us wants to hold that stuff against people, right? So I have some leverage against you. And that's not the community that God has intended for us. Community is one of God's gifts for us to be lifted when we fall. It's one of God's gifts for us to be lifted or warmed in cold seasons. When was a cold season warmed for you because of community? And by cold season, I mean like just a hard time. Can you think of any? And not just winter, okay? One time I did my first year of school in Colorado and went on this trip, and I kid you not, this is the dead truth. It got down to negative 20 degrees while we were camping. And I was so cold. We were kind of like dug out. There was a ton of snow. We dug out this little snow cave, and I was with one other guy. And, dude, you better believe, like, shameless snuggling going on. And like this, like, oh, man, it's so cold. Just can't wait for the sun to come up kind of thing. So, yes, two are warmer than one, but two also provide some warmth in some cold season. Has that ever happened to you? I've told the story in here before, but there was a season in my life where I was just discouraged and just kind of feeling like, and some things that I wanted to accomplish, I was spinning my wheels and not going anywhere. You ever felt like that? And that is so discouraging and so frustrating. And I wasn't going to quit, but I just kind of felt like I just want to quit. And I'll never forget a guy in my life group, Seth Rainwater. Seth is the one who plays bass. He always looks grumpy when he's playing. But he's smiling right now. He looked at me and he said, hey, what a wimp. And he did. This wasn't said or received in any sort of like suck it up buttercup kind of way. But he said, what a wimp if you only went forward when it was easy. And he said, you're not a wimp. And there was something about that was so warming in my cold season. And I'm, to this day, really grateful for the community that I've had to be warmed in cold seasons. We need to pick it up here. Strengthened against attack. You ever been strengthened against attack because of community? And I don't mean like, a robber came at you, but there probably could be some cool stories there. I mean, like the attack of your own fleshly nature that just kind of wants to gratify yourself, selfishness, me. When I was in college, I really wanted to honor Sweet D, and I really wanted to be pure in our relationships. And at the same time, date nights, like when we'd go on dates, they were just hard. They were hard for me and my resolve to be pure. And so at CIU, I would text a bunch of my guys, and because they knew about some of the stuff in my own heart, and I would text the guys saying, hey, I'm going on a date tonight. If you guys will just send me a bunch of texts throughout the night, and I told Sweet D that I was going to check my phone when I got these texts, and they were just little truths saying, hey, come on, honor her, honor your commitment to purity, honor her. And this it was very, very hard to fall into temptation. It was like, bzz, all right, bzz, you know? It's just, this is the community that God intends people to have. So, this morning, the goal is not to convince us of the necessity of this kind of community where we're productive in mission and lifted and warmed and strengthened, because we all, I think, agree that's what we need and that's what we want. So the goal is not to convince us of the necessity. The goal is to kind of answer the question, why are we like what the writer sees in Ecclesiastes chapter 4? Look, now we're going to look at what he looks at. We can relate to verse 1. Chapter 4, verse 1. Then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun. He sees terrible stuff. And behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed. They're in a cold season. This is hard. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and that they had no one to comfort them. Have you ever been there? Where the community that was needed is non-existent. This is what he sees. He has this conclusion, two are better than one. We need community for this. And I look around and I see some people are going through some hard times and they got nobody. And you kind of feel for the person in verse 1, this person that he's looking at, because you go, man, maybe you've been there. Again, like the baby, you want it, but you can't get it. And I think the writer is going to give us some reasons that often we want this and we don't get it. Some things that kill community. Look at verse 2-3. This is classic Ecclesiastes, just being honest about the way he feels. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead more than the living who are still living. But better off than both of them is the one who has never existed, who has never seen the evil activity that is done under the sun. In other words, better is the person who's dead and in the grave than the person who's living in this grave of isolation. That's what he's saying. Better the person who's dead than the person who's living this grave of isolation, who when hard things happen, there's nobody there. So why do we who want community and crave community so seldom find it? That's what he's going to tell us in verse 4. I've seen that every labor and every skill which is done is the result of what? Rivalry, or NIV people says envy. Some versions say jealousy. You know, if we just have some real talk about some community killers? Here's one. The lightning bolt on community: envy, jealousy. Jealousy kills community. And we're just going to kind of run through these really fast. When you're jealous, you're resentful because you have something that you shouldn't have that I should have. You're resentful. It kills community. You're dismissive. So you've been in this group and this person asks for prayer, and in your jealous heart, you see what they have and you kind of dismiss it. You go, you don't need that. I'm not going to pray for that. I need that. You don't need that. We're resentful. We're dismissive. We're guarded because when I'm jealous of somebody, actually I want them to perceive me in a certain light, and I can't be authentic if I want you to believe something about me that isn't really true of me. I want you to perceive something about me when I'm jealous of you, and so I'm guarded. I can't be honest, but here's the deal. Community will only go as deep as our honesty. And some of you, probably all of us can relate to like being in life group or small group or whatever, and it's like everybody's having a good time, and then it's time to pray. Now we go from talking about like real life to our uncle's daughter's cat who needs surgery. It's like, really, that's how deep we can go in our honesty about what's really going on? For a lot of us, it might be because there's jealousy that's being dismissive, jealousy that's being resentful, or jealousy that's kind of making me guarded. Maybe it's not envy, though. Maybe it's lazy. Look at this, verse 5. The fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. He's lazy. Lazy. Lazy people rarely enjoy community. Here's what lazy people do. Now, lazy people never think they're lazy. That's the way we are, I guess. Lazy people always expect other people to reach out to them and never want to reach out to other people. This is the way laziness works. And then the people who do reach out, it kind of, when we're lazy, we expect that community and depth is going to happen like really, really fast, and then we get frustrated when it doesn't happen that way, and they're the problem. Is laziness killing community for you? You always expecting people to reach out to you and not reaching out yourself. Laziness kills community. Actually, hard work builds it. Yeah, we know this. When we do something hard with a group of people, there's something about that mission that brings people together. And there's just so many examples of it. Well, I don't have time for that. Laziness is killing us. The next one is in verse 6. This is, again, something that kills community. Verse 6. One handful of rest is better than 2 fistfuls of labor and striving after the wind. One handful of rest is better than 2 fistfuls of labor, of working so hard and being so busy all the time. Busyness kills our community. And again, I'm not just talking about small groups, I'm talking about family. Family, can I talk to working parents? If you think that working extra hours, more hours, so that you can provide for your family, so that you can buy them a nice car, but that's it, they get a nice car from you, but they don't get to you, we've deceived ourselves. We can't have community in our families if we think that, maybe this is easy, this is laziness that goes, hey, I'm just going to buy my girl a nice car, and that'll be good. One of the best things I've heard Adam say was, the best thing that I can give my family is me. Are we too busy? Are we too busy at work? Maybe you're too busy at church. Some of you are in like 5 Bible studies. Bible study, like, and maybe if you want to find community, maybe it's going to be less busyness and more like, I'm going to go deep with one group. Busyness, it kills community. And then last one in verse 9. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return. Wait, that's not verse 9. Okay, verse 7. Then I looked again at vanity under the sun. There was a certain man without dependent, having neither a son nor a brother, yet there was no end to all his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied. Or I think NIV says, his eyes were not content with his riches. Here's the last thing that kills community, at least that Solomon sees, and that is discontent. So focused on the way things should be that you can't be a part of the way things are. Is discontentment killing community for you? Lack of grace when other people kind of screw things up? My hope for this morning as we look at Ecclesiastes is that we would go, okay, I know what I want, and I see how I'm killing the thing that I'm craving because I'm jealous. I'm really asking you to think right now, what of these things might be killing your community? Envy? Lazy? busy, discontent. Community is more, there's more to it than just now I have friends to go trick-or-treating with. There's more that hangs on this kind of community than that. I want to read you from John 17 what Jesus prays for us, for the church, in John 17. You can turn there if you want. John 17, verse 20 says, I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those who believe in me through their word. So he's not just praying for his disciples, he's praying for the people who had come to know Jesus through his disciples. That's us. John 17, verse 21. Here's what he prays, that they may all be one. Even as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they may be in us. So he's praying for unity within the community so that the world may believe that you sent me. The community that we can have is intended by God to be so unnatural, it's like supernatural, and would cause a world to go, that's different. Because let's be honest, community is hard because where there's an opinion for every person. And when we can come together as one, this is one of the ways a watching world can go, hey, there's something different about them. As they can go through even hard things and go, hey, I'm going to kill my jealousy. I'm not going to be lazy. I'm not going to be overbusy. I'm not going to be discontent. I'm going to treat people like this, knowing, hey, when you bother me, I can know you're bought by Jesus and I'm bought by Jesus, so I can get over it. You offended me by that joke you told. You're bought by Jesus and I'm bought by Jesus. And we can have a community that actually testifies to the reality of the work of Jesus in our midst. So community, it's more than just having friends to hang out with. It's an evangelism tool. And when people walk in here, they can experience something different. So 2 final questions. First, are you a part of a community where you are productive, lifted, warmed, and strengthened? Are you part of this kind of community? If not, why not? Is it because you're jealous, lazy, busy, discontent, or maybe you're hurt? And that might be one of the biggest ones. Maybe somebody's hurt you. Maybe you've been wounded, and maybe, just maybe, you need to talk to somebody. If you're going, man, I would really like to have that community, but I don't know how, we literally have so many different kinds of groups here. It's awesome. Just go to the website, and you can just click on Connect, and then there's a list of different groups that you can get connected with. So are you part of a community where these things are happening for you? And second, are you part of a community where you bring productivity, lifting, warmth, and strength? If not, why not? Maybe you think that's somebody else's job to do this. That's the life group leader's job. To contribute, I want to come and just eat or whatever you do at your life group. And it really, I think the thing that has kept me from doing this in the groups I've been part of is this sort of insecurity that, oh yeah, he's supposed to talk about that stuff. He's the pastor. Leave it to him to bring up Jesus. I'm just trying to talk about whatever. But maybe your insecurity might be like, well, I don't really know what to say, or if I say it, it won't sound good. Maybe bump that. Just say it. If it's true, from a heart of compassion, let's speak up. Let's speak words that will lift and warmth and strengthen us. So, a lot of you are part of a community. Are you doing that? If not, why not? It's what we all need. It's what we all want. So we're done. Let me pray for us, and really want to ask you to engage with me in this prayer as we finish. Father, it is your desire that the communities that we have here would be ones that are productive in mission and that lift us in failure, that warm us in cold seasons and strengthen us against attack. I pray that you would do that work in us here, that we would reject the things that are killing our community, and that it would be something that proclaims the greatness of Jesus. We love you, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen. If you stand for the benediction. Just want to reread John 17. I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those who believe in me through their word, that they may be all one, even as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they may also be in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. Have a good day.